The late afternoon sun burned over the busy streets of Manila. Jeepneys honked, vendors shouted their prices, and people hurried past the rows of tiny sari-sari stores. In the middle of all that noise, one small food stall stood quietly at the corner. The air smelled of fried noodles and grilled fish. It was the kind of place where nobody looked twice at the customers, because everyone was just an ordinary person trying to eat after a long day. At one of the wooden benches sat a man in a plain white shirt and a baseball cap pulled low. His posture was relaxed, his presence almost invisible. He sipped from a glass of water, blending in with the crowd like any other tired worker. That man was Manny Pacquiao, but nobody recognized him. Away from the spotlight, away from the boxing ring, he looked like a simple, everyday Filipino just enjoying a quiet meal. And then, the calm cracked. The roar of a motorcycle cut through the air as a biker screeched to a stop right in front of the stall. He was loud, wearing a leather jacket, dark sunglasses, and an expression that demanded attention. Without even switching off the engine, he strutted inside like he owned the place. His boots slammed against the wooden floor, and his presence immediately shifted the atmosphere. Customers turned to stare. The stall owner froze for a second, nervous. The biker brushed past Manny roughly, knocking his arm so that a bit of water spilled from his glass. Instead of apologizing, the biker leaned forward, glaring. His eyes narrowed at Manny's simple white shirt. In one swift, aggressive motion, he grabbed the fabric. "Rep!" The sound echoed across the stall. The biker smirked, releasing the torn shirt as if he had just proven some kind of dominance. Gasps spread across the room. A couple at the next table whispered, "Why didn't he fight back? Look at him. He's not even defending himself." Nobody knew the truth. Nobody realized who they were watching. But Manny stayed calm. He didn't raise his voice, didn't swing a fist, didn't even frown. He simply sat there quiet, his eyes steady on the biker. And in that silence, everyone began to wonder, who is this man? Why isn't he reacting? What will happen next? Have you ever seen someone being disrespected in public but still stay calm? What would you do in that moment? Share your story in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe. The biker's smirk lingered as if he had just won some invisible fight. He turned his back on Manny and swaggered to the counter. His boots thudded against the wooden floor like a drumbeat of arrogance. "Give me food, and make it fast," he barked at the stall owner, tossing a few coins onto the counter. The coins clattered loudly, rolling across the surface before dropping to the ground. The owner bent down quickly to pick them up, her hands trembling. The biker chuckled. "Clumsy hands, huh? Move faster, old lady." Customers exchanged uneasy glances. Some shook their heads. Others whispered just loudly enough for Manny to hear. Such disrespect. Why isn't anyone saying something? But no one dared to stand up. At the torn shirt table, Manny sat quietly. His fingers brushed lightly against the rip in the fabric, yet his expression remained calm, almost peaceful. He looked at the biker as if he was studying him, not as an enemy but as a puzzle waiting to be solved. The biker, noticing Manny's steady eyes, snarled, "What are you looking at? You want trouble too?" But Manny didn't answer. He just lifted his glass, took a slow sip of water, and set it down. Again, the silence was louder than words. The tension grew thicker. The stall felt smaller. Everyone's eyes darted between the arrogant biker and the quiet man in the torn shirt. Some thought Manny was scared. Others thought he was foolish for not defending himself. A few even muttered, "He should stand up. He should show some pride." But Manny remained still. The biker grew restless. He hated being ignored. He walked back toward Manny's table, towering over him. "You think you're tough? Sitting there like a saint? Speak up, old man." Still, Manny said nothing. His calmness was disarming, almost unsettling. The crowd leaned forward, waiting for the explosion, waiting for the moment when fists would fly. But nothing happened. The stall owner placed a bowl of noodles on the counter, her hands shaking. The biker stomped back, grabbed the bowl and slurped loudly, spilling broth onto the floor. He laughed between mouthfuls. "This is garbage food. Can't even cook properly. The owner lowered her eyes, too scared to respond. The other customers stayed silent. The biker's voice filled the room with venom, but Manny's silence filled it with suspense. A young boy at the far corner whispered to his mother, "Why is that man not afraid? He didn't even move when his shirt was ripped." The mother shushed him quickly, but even she couldn't take her eyes off Manny. Every second stretched. The balance of the scene was strange. One man loud and aggressive, the other quiet and still. It was as though the storm was raging against a mountain that refused to crumble. The biker finished eating and slammed the empty bowl onto the counter. The sound startled everyone. "This is the worst stall I've ever seen, worthless, just like that man sitting there." He jabbed a finger toward Manny. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Everyone expected Manny to finally break, to retaliate, to show anger. But Manny simply looked at the biker, his expression soft, almost compassionate, and that look, calm, unshaken, was more powerful than any punch could have been. The biker frowned, confused. For the first time, his confidence wavered. Why wasn't this man reacting? Why wasn't he fighting back? The crowd began to sense something unusual. Something was different about this quiet stranger. And deep inside, a question grew louder in everyone's mind. Who exactly is this man? And how long can he stay silent? The stall was heavy with silence, broken only by the faint buzzing of the fluorescent light above and the faint clatter of a spoon against a bowl. The biker leaned back against the counter, arms crossed, still glaring at Manny as if waiting for him to react. But Manny simply adjusted his torn shirt and raised his hand to call the stall owner. "A bowl of noodles, please," Manny said softly. His voice was calm, gentle, and carried no trace of anger. The stall owner hesitated, almost surprised he could still speak politely after what had just happened. She nodded quickly and hurried off to prepare his food. The biker scoffed. "After I tore your shirt, you're still sitting there like nothing happened? What's wrong with you? Are you deaf? Or just stupid?" Manny turned his eyes toward him, not with anger, but with curiosity. His lips curved into the faintest smile. "Brother," he said slowly, "why do you carry so much weight in your voice? Did the world hurt you so badly that you want to hurt everyone else?" The biker's smirk faltered for a moment. He opened his mouth to snap back but found no words. Nobody had ever spoken to him like that. Soft, probing, without insult. The other customers leaned in. This wasn't just a fight anymore. It was a conversation. "What do you know about me?" The biker muttered, his voice dropping lower. "You don't know what it's like out there." Manny stirred the glass of water in front of him, watching the small ripples. "You're right, I don't know everything. But I do know pain. And I know what it's like to feel invisible." The biker stiffened. He tried to maintain his arrogance, but something in Manny's calm tone chipped away at his armor. He barked, louder now as if to protect himself. "You sit there smiling like a fool. You think kindness works in this world? People will step on you, laugh at you, leave you behind." Manny tilted his head, studying him. "And yet here you are eating food from the very people you insult. Does disrespect fill your stomach, or is it just hunger like the rest of us?" The crowd murmured. Some covered their mouths to hide their surprise at the honesty in Manny's words. The biker's jaw tightened. "Don't talk to me like you're better than me," he snapped, though his voice cracked slightly. Manny leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. His eyes softened, filled with something rare, compassion. "Better than you? No. I've been lower than you can imagine. I've been hungry, barefoot, and forgotten, but I learned something." He paused deliberately, letting the silence pull everyone closer. "Respect is free, and when you give it, you earn it." The biker's chest rose and fell faster, like his body wanted to argue but his heart wanted to listen. He glanced around and realized the customers were no longer staring at him in fear. They were staring at Manny, drawn into his calmness. The stall owner placed Manny's bowl of noodles in front of him. Manny bowed his head slightly in thanks. Then he lifted the chopsticks, ate one mouthful, and turned back to the biker. "You say the world steps on you. Maybe that's true. But answer me this." Manny's voice lowered, his eyes steady. If someone tore your dignity the way you tore my shirt, what would you do? The words struck like a bell in a quiet church. The biker froze, his hands clenched and unclenched, but no insult came out this time. For the first time, his eyes dropped to the floor. The customers exchanged looks. The tension in the room had shifted. This wasn't anger anymore. It was something deeper. The biker looked unsettled, almost lost. Manny leaned back, quietly taking another bite. He didn't press. He didn't lecture. He simply let the question hang in the air, forcing the biker and everyone else to reflect. The young boy in the corner whispered, "Mama, that man, he's different." His mother nodded slowly, her eyes still fixed on Manny. "Yes, very different." The biker's lips parted, but he only muttered under his breath, almost to himself, "What would I do?" The crowd sat in silence. For the first time since the biker entered, the room no longer belonged to his anger. It belonged to Manny's quiet strength. What would you do if someone tore your dignity in public? Would you fight back with anger or respond with calm? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The biker stood frozen, Manny's question echoing in his head. The stall, once filled with noise, now felt like a quiet courtroom where the truth waited to be spoken. His arrogance wavered, replaced by something heavier, something he had long tried to bury. "You want to know why I act this way?" The biker muttered, his voice low, almost trembling. His sunglasses no longer hid his eyes. They flickered with a pain no one expected. Manny nodded gently. "If you want to share, I will listen." The biker leaned against the counter, shoulders heavy as though the weight of his past pressed down on him. He let out a bitter laugh. "I wasn't always like this. Once I was just a delivery boy. I woke up every morning at 4 a.m., rode through traffic, carried boxes heavier than me. People ignored me, cursed at me on the road, treated me like dirt. But I didn't care because I had a reason." He swallowed hard, his voice breaking. "My mother." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. The same people who judged him minutes ago now listened closely. She was sick. Always coughing, always weak. The medicine was expensive and the hospital didn't care that I had no money, so I worked. Day after day I worked until my hands bled. I skipped meals so she could eat. I wore the same shirt for weeks because every peso went to her medicine. The biker's fists clenched. His voice rose with anger, but his eyes glistened with sorrow. And still, it wasn't enough. One night I came home with groceries and she was gone. Alone. No one helped her. The neighbors said they didn't want to get involved. The hospital said, no payment, no treatment. The stall was utterly silent. Even the sound of traffic outside seemed distant. The biker's tough exterior cracked completely as his voice dropped into a whisper. I buried her with my own hands, and after that, I didn't care anymore. I stopped working. I stopped caring about people. Why should I? People never cared about me. His chest heaved as he turned to Manny, his eyes burning. So now, when I see weakness, I crush it. When I see respect, I tear it apart. Because the world tore me apart first. The crowd's expressions shifted from judgment to empathy. The stall owner covered her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. A young man near the door whispered, "No wonder he's so angry." Manny listened without interrupting, his face calm, but his eyes heavy with compassion. When the biker finally fell silent, Manny leaned forward. "You think pain makes you stronger by breaking others," Manny said softly. "But in truth, pain only makes you heavier when you carry it alone." The biker blinked, his face twisting between anger and vulnerability. Manny continued, his voice steady and low. "I know hunger. I know poverty. I know the ache of being invisible. As a child, I sold bread on the streets with nothing but hope in my pocket. Sometimes hope was all I had. But I learned, pain can either build you or destroy you. The choice is yours." The biker's eyes darted around the room. He saw the faces of strangers who no longer looked at him with fear, but with sympathy. For the first time in years, he felt seen, not as a monster, but as a man who had suffered. He slumped onto a bench across from Manny, his arrogance slipping away like dust in the wind. His voice was hoarse. "I thought if I became the loudest, the toughest, no one could ever hurt me again." Manny shook his head slowly. "Strength is not in how loud you shout or how much fear you create. Real strength is quiet. It's in how you rise after the world pushes you down, and how you lift others when they fall." The biker's lips trembled. He covered his face, with one hand ashamed of the tears threatening to escape. The stall, once filled with fear, now pulsed with raw humanity. Every person inside felt the weight of his story, and every heart softened. Manny placed his chopsticks down gently. "Brother, your mother's memory deserves better than this anger. If she could see you now, would she be proud? Or would she want her son to stand tall with kindness, not rage?" The biker lowered his hand slowly. His face, once hard and cold, now looked broken, vulnerable, almost childlike. He had no answer, because deep down he knew the truth. The biker sat hunched on the bench, his hands still trembling as if his confession had ripped something inside him open. The stall was heavy with silence. No more laughter, no more whispers of mockery. Every eye was fixed on him, but not with judgment this time. They were waiting to understand more. Manny, still calm, lifted his gaze from the torn shirt on his chest to the people around them. "Is what he said true?" he asked gently. The stall owner, her voice unsteady, stepped forward. "I've seen him before, riding late at night carrying boxes bigger than his body. He delivered rice sacks to my neighbor's store for months. Rain or shine, he was there." She hesitated, her lips trembling. "And then, one day he stopped coming. I thought he had found a better job. I never knew his mother was sick." The biker looked down at the floor, ashamed. Another customer, a middle-aged man in work clothes, nodded slowly. "I remember him too, always rushing through traffic no matter how dangerous. People would curse at him for blocking the road, but he never answered back. He just kept working." Whispers spread like ripples through the crowd. Some gasped in disbelief, others shook their heads with regret. The arrogant biker they had mocked moments ago was slowly transforming before their eyes into something else. A man broken by life, carrying wounds nobody cared to see. Even a street kid who had been hanging by the doorway spoke up. "Kuya gave me bread once," the boy said softly. He said, "Don't tell anyone." "I never forgot that." The biker's eyes widened. He turned toward the boy, his lips parting in shock. He didn't remember the moment, but the boy's words cut through his anger like a beam of light. Manny folded his hands together, his voice steady. "You see? You thought no one noticed your struggle. But the truth is, kindness leaves a trail. Even when life takes everything from us, those moments remain." The crowd murmured in agreement. Some wiped their eyes. The biker clenched his fists tighter, trying to hide his emotions, but his shoulders betrayed him. They shook with silent sobs he could no longer hold back. For the first time, the arrogant biker who had ripped a stranger's shirt in public was being seen not as a villain, but as a man carrying scars too heavy for one heart alone. Manny stood up slowly, his calm presence commanding the room. He stepped closer to the biker, not with fists, not with anger, but with a dignity that silenced even the busiest street outside. "You lost your mother, and the world gave you nothing in return," Manny said softly. "But hurting others will not heal. You carry her memory in every breath. Don't dishonor it with rage. Honor it with the strength to rise again." The biker finally lifted his head. His sunglasses had slipped down his nose, revealing eyes swollen with tears. His voice cracked. "But I have nothing left, no job, no family, just this bike and my anger." Manny's lips curved into a small, almost knowing smile. "Sometimes when we think we have nothing, that's when we discover what we really are. Not what life took from us, but what we choose to give back." The words struck not just the biker, but everyone in the stall. You could feel the shift in the air, sympathy, respect. even admiration for the quiet man in the torn shirt who spoke like he carried the weight of every broken soul with him. Someone whispered from the corner, almost reverent, "Who is he?" Another customer answered, his eyes wide with sudden recognition. "That's Manny Pacquiao." Gasps rippled through the room. The realization spread like fire. This wasn't just any man, this was a champion, a national hero. And yet, here he was, sitting humbly in a food stall, listening to the story of a broken biker with the patience of a brother. The biker's body shook harder. He staggered to his feet, staring at Manny with disbelief. You're him? And I tore your shirt?" Manny simply placed a hand on the biker's shoulder. His touch was light, but the gesture carried the weight of forgiveness. "You tore my shirt," Manny said, "but not my respect for you. Clothes can be replaced. Dignity can be restored. It's not too late." The crowd erupted in murmurs. Some clapped quietly. Others covered their mouths, unable to believe the grace they were witnessing. The stall owner's eyes filled with tears as she whispered, "A true champion, not just in the ring." The biker lowered his head, unable to meet Manny's gaze. For the first time in years, he felt something break inside him, not from anger, but from the painful release of carrying too much sorrow alone. And in that fragile moment, the truth wasn't just revealed to the crowd. It was revealed to the biker himself. He was not beyond saving. The revelation hung in the air like thunder after lightning. The whispers of the crowd still circled the food stall. It's Manny Pacquiao, the champion, the senator, the man who gives back to the poor. The biker stood stiff, unable to look Manny in the eyes. His tough posture had crumbled into shame. His lips moved, but no words came out. Manny broke the silence first, his voice calm but strong enough for everyone to hear. "You think you have nothing left. But the truth is, you are still standing. That means your story is not finished." The biker swallowed hard. "I don't deserve your respect, not after what I did. I ripped your shirt. I insulted you. I treated everyone here like trash." Manny smiled faintly, shaking his head. "Clothes can be replaced. Words can be forgiven. But dignity, your own dignity, you must rebuild for yourself." The crowd leaned closer. Every sentence felt like a lesson written in real time. Manny turned to the stall owner. "How much for all the food this man has eaten here before?" The woman blinked, startled. Sir Manny, you don't have to." "I'm not asking if I have to," Manny interrupted softly. "I'm asking how much." She hesitated, then whispered a number. Manny reached into his pocket, pulling out enough bills to cover not only the biker's meals but the bills of everyone sitting in the stall that evening. Gasps filled the room. The biker's eyes widened. Why would you do that for me?" Manny placed the money on the counter, then turned back to him. "Because generosity breaks chains that anger never will. I see more in you than what you show the world." The biker's chest tightened. He shook his head. "But I don't even have a place to sleep tonight. I have nothing." Manny paused for a moment, then said quietly, "You have a bike, don't you? You know the streets better than anyone. Work with me. My foundation delivers food and supplies to families in need. We need people who know these roads, who can ride through traffic, who aren't afraid of hard work." The biker blinked, stunned. You're offering me a job?" Manny nodded. "Not charity. Opportunity. Your hands can still work. Your heart can still heal. But only if you let go of the anger." The crowd erupted with murmurs of astonishment. A few even clapped. Some were openly crying. The biker's lips trembled. His entire body shook as the weight of the moment pressed down on him. He dropped to his knees in front of Manny, tears spilling freely now. "I don't deserve this. I don't deserve your forgiveness." Manny bent down and lifted him gently by the shoulders. "Brother, none of us are perfect, but everyone deserves a chance to rise again." The biker covered his face with his hands, overwhelmed. The tough mask he had worn for years shattered completely, replaced by raw humility. The crowd, once afraid of him, now saw a man transformed, not by force but by kindness. Even the young boy in the corner piped up, his voice small but certain. "Kuya, don't waste the chance, take it." The biker looked up at Manny through wet eyes, then nodded slowly. "I'll do it. I'll try." Manny's hand rested firmly on his shoulder. "Not try. Do. For yourself, and for your mother's memory." The stall filled with applause, not for a fight won, but for a life redeemed. Customers clapped, some standing, others wiping away tears. The stall owner whispered, "This is the first time I've seen justice and mercy in the same moment." The biker, still trembling, managed a weak smile through his tears. For the first time in years, it wasn't a smile of arrogance, but of hope. And in that crowded food stall on an ordinary Manila evening, something extraordinary happened. A broken man found a second chance, and everyone who witnessed it would carry the memory forever. The air inside the stall was electric, not with fear anymore, but with something far more powerful: hope. The biker wiped his face with the back of his hand, trying to regain some composure, but his eyes betrayed him. They were red, raw, and filled with gratitude. He turned to the people he had insulted earlier, the stall owner, the customers, even the boy by the door. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I disrespected all of you. I thought my pain gave me the right to hurt others. I was wrong." The stall owner stepped forward, her eyes soft. "All of us carry burdens, but today you learned what many never do. You can choose a different road." She gently placed a fresh bowl of noodles in front of him. "Eat, not as a customer, but as a brother." The biker's lips quivered. He bowed his head and accepted the food, whispering a trembling, "Thank you." The crowd applauded softly, but their eyes shifted back to Manny. His torn shirt still bore the rip down the chest, yet he wore it like a badge of humility. He wasn't a man who needed fine clothes to command respect. His dignity was stronger than fabric. Manny stood ready to leave, but not before offering one final lesson. His voice was steady, gentle, but carried the weight of truth. "Respect is not something you demand," he said, looking around the stall. "It's something you give first. Kindness is not weakness, humility is not defeat. True strength is when you can lift others even while you carry your own scars." He turned to the biker, placing one last hand on his shoulder. "Your story doesn't end here. Don't waste the chance you've been given. Live so your mother's memory shines through your actions, not your anger." The biker nodded firmly, a spark of determination igniting in his eyes. For the first time, his shoulders no longer slumped with defeat. They squared with resolve. As Manny walked out of the stall, the crowd followed him with their eyes. The whispers were no longer about the shirt that had been torn, but about the lesson they had all received. They hadn't just witnessed a confrontation, they had witnessed transformation. A young man by the counter muttered to his friend, "Only Manny could turn an insult into inspiration." The boy at the door called out loudly, his small voice echoing across the room, "Kuya Manny, thank you." Manny glanced back, smiled, and gave a small nod before stepping into the busy Manila street once again, disappearing into the crowd like an ordinary man with an extraordinary heart. Inside the stall, the biker sat quietly, clutching the bowl of noodles. His life forever changed by one encounter: respect, humility, kindness. These are not signs of weakness, they are the strongest weapons a person can carry. So next time you see someone struggling, or even someone who lashes out in anger, remember, behind every harsh word there might be a hidden story of pain, and sometimes one act of compassion can change a life forever. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because your story matters too.